Hello. I could eat about 1.5 million of these.
Well, nobody's perfect.
Welcome to the It's a Drama podcast.
My mother thanks you.
If you can't say something nice.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Hello and welcome to the It's a Drama podcast. I am Liz.
And I am Sunny.
And today we're going to be talking about growing up in New Zealand, life in New Zealand, what it was like for you, Sunny, as a kid to grow up in New Zealand, as a teenager. Well, both child and teenager growing up in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. The reason this is brought about is because we've had lots of inquiries about New Zealand. And one of the main topics that people say is, I want to move to New Zealand. I really want to live in New Zealand, but I'm bringing my kids and I'm worried that they are going to be bored. They're coming from places, from America, from the UK. And do you think that's a valid question?
Yeah, I do. I think that's the same with any place, though. You could think, oh, will I be bored if I move there? You know, if you're going to move to the West End, or not West End, but like the East Side of London, it'll be like, oh, is it all like, slummy and stuff, or will it be boring?
Oh, careful.
That's what they say, though, isn't it? It's like, yeah, but
you'd be hanging out with the craze if you go to the East End of London, Sonny. You're not going to be bored.
No, but that's what I mean. It's just the same with anywhere.
Yeah. So New Zealand, according to immigrationnz.com, is regularly voted as one of the best countries in the world to raise a family. But, and I can't remember, was it Jamie Oliver? Someone came here and said, it's boring. New Zealand's boring. So obviously people have put these two together and thought, oh, my kid's going to be bored. So let's go through what it was like for you, young laddie, to grow up in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. All right. So shall we do it like I'm going to ask you a few questions?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. So first of all, how old were you when you moved to New Zealand?
8, I think. Yeah, I was 8. Yeah.
And you moved from?
Bath in England.
Yeah.
Or Bath.
Which, quite a cosmopolitan city, or Bath is. Bath.
Yeah.
Lots of things going on, lots of things to do. Not at 8 years old, you would have really noticed that, but...
Not really remembered a lot of the stuff that was there.
So if someone had to... We'll go through the little bits and bobs in detail, but on the whole, if someone had to say to you, okay, Sonny, you are 8 when you moved here. You're now almost 19. Yep. So 10 years, you've been living in New Zealand. Was it boring?
No, I don't think so. They're building a laser tag arena above the bowling alley. So that's exciting.
Are you saying that with a sarcasm?
Yeah, I am. But no, it is very exciting. I think there's lots of things to do, in terms of swimming and surfing and like jumping off of things and going for walks in the bush and exploring and climbing a mountain and riding bikes along the coastal walkway and there's cinemas and shopping malls. There's one shopping mall. There's a few things to do. I don't think we're ever bored.
So just to give you some context, we live in New Plymouth, which is a relatively medium-sized city in New Zealand. Population is around 75,000. And there's a city centre and there's the beach and there's the mountain. We've got Mount Taranaki behind us where we live, where you can ski. We never have done, but you can ski in the winter. And the beach, that is famous for surfing.
Yeah.
Was it all, when people say, oh yeah, they live in New Zealand and the kids just run around with their bare feet and they go surfing all day and running around in the country and...
It is in the summer, I think, if that's what you're going to ask. Is it true? I think in the summer it's probably true. They are always at the beach and the skate park and
I think
there's always kids, it's literally skateboarding on concrete with bare feet and stuff like that. And yeah, they do that, and at school it's like take your shoes off before you come into the classroom. I don't think that's ever heard of in England, is it? Taking your shoes off.
Going bare feet?
Yeah, into the class.
Probably not.
Yeah. And then playing out on the playground in bare feet and yeah, I don't know, it's just a big thing in New Zealand, isn't it? The bare feet.
Can you think back to when I know this is asking a lot, but when you were 8 and you moved here, what was the one thing that you thought, oh, that's different? That's different from the UK. Is there anything that you can think of that you just thought?
Yeah. In the UK, it was just like, oh, can I have Niall over for a play date? Yeah, you can. We'll arrange it for next month. We'll arrange it for like in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But in New Zealand, it was just like school finished. It was like, oh, I want to come to my house. And that was just so weird to me. It was just like, you don't have to make a big arrangement to go to their house. It's just like, oh yeah, just go to their house. Just come to his house,
Yeah.
Just have them over.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was because they're all in the same village, but it was just like, yeah, you just went to their house straight after school finished with no prior arrangement or anything.
Yeah. I remember that actually. I remember you saying that to me. You're like, they just all want to come over to our house or they're inviting me over. And it was, it was just, you're right. It was just like, it's no big deal,
Because in England, it was just like, okay, we'll arrange it for, I don't know, May 24th.
Yeah, that's true. It's like, okay, next Wednesday, maybe Niall can come over after and have tea.
Yeah.
The other thing as well that I noticed, I didn't know if you remembered this or not, but in England, if you go to someone's house after school, they're expected to stay for tea.
Yeah.
And here they don't do that so much.
No, it's just like, okay, we'll be home for dinner. You know?
Yeah. I'll come home at tea time.
Yeah.
All right. So, anything else that you can think of that was different?
Maybe like just the fact that you just, I don't know, like, especially me and like my old friend were just like when they turned up to our house, was like, oh, does he want to come over? And then you went over, and then I remember like, I don't know, you just walk around the village and go and see things, and there was just a sense of that freedom almost, and safety at the same time. Like one time we broke into Messenger Terrace.
That's where we lived, where we were renting a house.
To go and get a lightsaber out of my room, and we cracked the window open and snuck in. And
I'm sure you did.
Yeah, to get my purple lightsaber.
Where was I?
You were all out, I think. We were just at Al's house. And, it snuck into... And, it was just like, I don't think that would happen in England. It would be like, oh, you've set the alarm off, or, you've triggered the security cameras,
Yeah.
Then you wouldn't leave a window cracked open or whatever,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, there was just that sense of safety in the village and stuff like that. And just having the beach right there as well. And it's not like England beaches that are a bit miserable and grey. It was just like black sand and blue water, and it was just like, weird.
England beaches are miserable and grey. Got to stick up for England here, Sonny. There's some beautiful beaches in England. They're not all miserable.
I've never seen them.
Of course you have.
I don't think I have.
You've been to the beaches in Cornwall.
No, because the whole of where did we used to go?
Oh, we used to take you to Bournemouth.
Bournemouth was just
lovely.
Horrible. It's just pebbles.
Sunny.
Wasn't it though? It was just pebbles. The whole beach was just pebbles.
No, Bournemouth has got lovely beaches. Really nice.
Bournemouth
Maybe you're thinking of
pebbles.
maybe you're thinking of. Anyway, moving on, because we're not talking about England beaches. I think you're absolutely right, and that's the biggest thing that I noticed, and I'm glad you've talked about that, because you do tend to forget and you do tend to take it for granted. But I remember the biggest thing when we came here from England was when you were allowed to walk to school on your own, and you were only 8, and Tess was only 5. And they had this thing called, they did have parents walking. They had did you remember the thing they called the walking bus? Yeah. And you'd all join onto it and all walk to school with whichever parent was running the walking bus. But even so, it's not unusual in New Zealand, where we live. Yeah. I'm talking like we live in Orcora, it's a village just outside New Plymouth. It's a small, friendly village, and it isn't unusual to see little kids walking home from school on their own. Yeah. And that was a massive thing for me because, you did not let your kid out of your sight. No. You just didn't. Yeah. And so, I think that is a massive plus because...
Just the freedom that they get, Yeah. And the safety as well. That's what I mean. It's just the safety and that freedom as well. You don't have a problem with just letting your kid... Like, you let me walk to school when I was 11.
Of course I would, yeah.
And even though you cried and I cried.
Yeah, do you remember that?
It was like the first time I'd walked and you started crying and I was walking to school with my lip wobbling because it was just like, I'm walking to school by myself. It's all changing.
Yeah, that's a big thing. because you do not let your kids walk to school. Well, we didn't. I'm not going to generalize, but where we lived in Bath, we would not let our kids out on their own to walk around. You just wouldn't, and that was it.
Yeah.
So coming here, that was a big thing.
And I think the ice cream thing was probably different as well.
What's the ice cream thing?
It was just like, in England, ice cream, you don't really get ice cream because it's so small and expensive. But here, it was just like every Friday, you'd just be like, right, go and get a $2 ice cream. That's massive,
Yeah, yeah.
That was another big thing, was the ice cream. And all the different flavours as well. Like, I'd only ever known really, like, in England, like vanilla or chocolate or, strawberry or something like that. But here, it was just all these wacky flavours, like birthday cake and candy floss.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? If you want to come to New Zealand and you've got kids and they're like, oh no, I don't want to go, it might be boring, just tell them about the ice cream.
The ice cream's the best because of Tip Top, the brand Tip Top, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all made with the Fonterra milk, and it is really just the best ice cream.
It is, isn't it? And it's just such a regular tradition in New Zealand to always see people with ice creams. And like Sonny said, they're huge, aren't they? And they're cheap.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of like, it sums up your childhood, isn't it? Like, just seeing you with those massive big ice creams walking along with no shoes on.
Yeah.
And that sounds so, like, what's the word? Like, stereotypical, like, oh, that's what but that's true.
Yeah.
That's what it was like, wasn't it?
That's what it was like.
Yeah. Okay, and also going back to the safety thing, apparently New Plymouth was designated the 3rd safest community in New Zealand to live. And that's interesting because when we went to Sean's party last Christmas, his uncle, I think, is a policeman or a retired police officer. And I was talking to him and he's like worked all over New Zealand. And I just said, what is the safe, where would you say is the safest place in New Zealand?
Yeah.
And he said, on the North Island. He didn't work on the South Island. And he said New Plymouth. So,
well,
there you go,
I believe
see?
them. As you hear stories about Wanganui and Hamilton and Stratford, and they're all like, But New Plymouth, I think, is relatively safe in that way.
Yeah, well, I certainly felt safe, with you growing up.
Yeah.
So little kids, so 8, 9, 10, what sort of things did you do at the weekend?
8, 9 or 10. I can't really remember, but I think it was just a lot of playing with neighbours and going to the beach and just dressing up and running around the streets, and it was just, not running around the streets, but just running across the
little wild child.
Yeah. Running over the road to see our neighbours, because we lived opposite the Sophie and Corey, didn't we? It was just like, sometimes it was a bit annoying, but sometimes they'd come over and try and play with us, and just imagination games as well, just a lot. It was kind of before you were introduced to phones and video games and stuff, and it was just like imagination games was the big thing for us, I think.
Did you ever play Knock a Door Run, Sonny?
No, we never played that.
Do you know what Knock a Door Run is?
Yeah, right. No, ding dong ditch, isn't it?
What's it called?
Ding dong ditch. It's when you ding dong someone's house and then run away.
Did they do that in New Zealand?
No, but we always joke about it.
Oh, right. Yeah. I'll tell you, in the UK, that's the best game ever when you're little.
Is it?
That's what everyone does, is Knock a Door Run. It's just, what else is there to do in the 1970s?
How rude is that, though? Knocking on someone's door and then running away.
How mean is that?
Yeah, that's why there's such a high crime rate.
So, okay then, so you felt safe and you went to the beach.
Yeah.
You never really, unless you lived in a place in the middle of New Zealand, like Rotorua or Hamilton, something like that.
I don't know what you do there.
Yeah, so we're talking about, we live on the coast, so...
This is just my personal experience, I guess.
Yeah. And, okay, so 8, 9, 10, and then when you were 11, I think we moved out to the country. Mm-hmm. So you were no longer able to run across the road doing Ding Dong Dash.
No, and, you can still see it, though, the sea.
Yeah, we can still see the sea, but...
Distant memory of times gone by.
Yeah.
Now we're just stuck up here with the cows. But no, then my beaches became fields.
Fields?
Yeah, and my sand dunes became hills.
That's very poetic, Sally.
Yes.
Elaborate, please. Go on.
But no, so, my palm trees became pine trees, and I just go and run around forests and with my bow and arrow and just play by myself.
Sorry, sad and lonely.
Watching the leaves slowly fall from the trees as summer bled into autumn and autumn to winter. No, but an alone child, alone in New Zealand. No, but
A little homeschooler up on the hill.
a little homeschooler.
Right,
Outed
listen.
by his friends, no longer invited to ding dong ditching. He now became the ding dong ditched.
Sonny.
But no, it was really fun. I think in the country was actually probably more fun than being by the coast, because you can still go to the coast, but when are you at the coast and go to the country, you know? So it's kind of like, you know, it's a bit of both worlds.
Okay, so let's pretend it's pouring down with rain. You're not going to be playing Ding Dong Ditch down at the village. You're not going to the beach with your massive scoop of ice cream.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? What is there to do?
Where am I?
What do you mean?
Am I in the country or at the sea?
You're here,
Oh,
you're
okay.
13,
Yeah.
and it's pouring down, and you say, oh, it's boring. What is there to do? What would you go and do in New Plymouth at 13?
Oh, in New Plymouth?
At the weekend.
Oh, I was never allowed to go to New Plymouth, though.
What do you mean?
Remember that? When I was in Animal Farm at 13, I was like, oh, Mummy, Sophie's invited me to go to the cinema. No, you're not going. You're not going with strangers.
Sonny,
It's what you
stop,
said.
stop.
That's what you said. I
That
remember sitting in the car thinking, oh, they're inviting me. And then I had to... And I had to make up some story about how to go to my grandma's funeral because I was too embarrassed to say my mummy won't let me out of the house. No, you were just like, no, you're not going to see a movie.
Well, that's funny, Sonny, because I've got a very different recollection of that.
Oh, you
I
remember
remember
it.
you being 13. Sophie was 16. She was a lot older
15,
than you.
14.
Well,
No, she was 14 or 15.
No, hang on. She's 3 years older than you.
Yeah.
And you wanted to go to her party, and I said, hang on. And I said, yeah, you can go to her
I wasn't
party.
13 at her party.
You were.
I was like 15 nearly.
No, this is when
was
you
like
wanted to go
years-
and play at Sophie's party. And I said, no, Sonny, you can stay here.
No, because this was around Annie when I was like 14 or 15.
All right, okay. Well, let's talk about this off screen.
Yeah.
Because we're going to disagree with this. I hope you're not going to turn into one of those kids, Sonny, that say, "Oh yeah, my parents didn't let me do anything," and then start
Man,
making up these.
I was oppressed as a kid.
Start making up these stories about how
I'm a
horrible
free
your
spirit
parents
now.
were.
Free spirit, man.
What would you do? And you were allowed out, so don't
Yeah,
say
okay.
that
Well,
you
I'd stick
weren't.
my cloak on and go out into the field if it was raining.
No, but say if you went into New Plymouth, what is there to do? Is there a cinema? Would you go and hang out at the mall? What would you do?
Well, I didn't have any money at 13, so the mall was a bit like boring. The cinema was only good if you were allowed to go with your family.
Oh my god, this is getting worse.
And maybe if you were like, oh, go to the skate park with our neighbours, in town.
You sure not go to the skate park with your granny?
No, she never wanted to go. But you go to your grandma. You'd send us to our grandma's for a week, weeks at a time. But no, I don't know. Like we used to go to the skate. We never used to go into town because we just used to go over to our neighbours at the weekend.
You were a very outdoor kid, and you would just always be playing in the fields. But what I'm trying to
Bit of a
say
recluse.
is, say if a normal child came to New Zealand, one who liked going out and doing other things rather than running around the field with his cloak on.
Yeah.
What would you say to a child of 13? What there is to do in New Plymouth, New Zealand? What is there to do,
Bowling?
Sonny? Yeah. Okay, we're getting there. Come on then. We
You
know
can
you weren't
go
allowed.
Bowling, you can go golfing, you can go mini golfing, you can
Yeah,
Pukekura Park that you can walk around and play on the monkey bars. You can I don't
You're
know.
not selling it to me.
No, yes I am.
You're not.
But I'm just saying from my experience, because I don't really know, because I always stayed at home. But there's lots of things to do. There's the coastal walk. I already said that. But there's the coastal walkway. There's roller skating, rollerblading. Velodrome.
Yeah, the velodrome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we went there with the homeschoolers once.
yeah. Is New Plymouth? I'll tell you, I'm going to kill you after this, Sonny. I'm really going to go for you after this, Sonny, because you just let me down. You're making it sound like you've had a rubbish, boring
I have
childhood.
not. It's just that my childhood was very spent with my nose in a book,
Okay, all right. So take a deep breath.
dreaming of Narnia and Harry Potter.
When you went into New Plymouth, when you go into New Zealand, not New Zealand, when you
Plymouth.
go into New Plymouth and you wander around, are there big gangs of people wandering around? Like big gangs of kids?
No, maybe some drop kicks outside the library.
What's a drop kick?
Someone who just dropped out of high school at 16 and doesn't even get a trade, just kind of just Doesn't do anything.
So
Just wears a hoodie and a scooter and sits outside the library with their mates.
you've just described yourself there, Sonny.
Thanks.
you wear a hoodie and you've got a scooter.
I don't wear a hoodie.
Right, okay, stop. Look, Sonny, when
Yeah.
you go around, is there like gangs of kids just hanging around the mall? Because that's what I noticed
Yeah,
when we went
sometimes.
travelling. There are, yeah. So,
Yeah.
there's
So
that.
you could go and hang outside the mall.
Yeah, walk around the mall. I know Tessa goes out with her mates and
Yeah.
she's like walks around and she's hanging around. She goes to Starbucks. And,
Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I'm her mates.
yeah.
I'm a friend. But yeah, we all go to... There's Starbucks. Yeah, you can go to Starbucks. There's different clothes shops. There's lots of little places you can get food. And there's always other people's houses you can go to. And
Tell me what water sports you've done. In the span of your very long life, 10 years
Water
that
skiing.
you've been... Pardon?
water skiing and sea biscuiting.
Right, so you've been water skiing, ski biscuiting, what else?
Boogie boarding.
Yep,
Body surfing.
yep.
Swimming. Jumping off of a bridge and other higher things.
Yeah, you love jumping off, don't you? That's a big thing in New Zealand, isn't it? You always see kids jumping off anything.
Yeah, if you can find anything to jump off of, they'll jump off it.
They don't do knock a door run, they're jumping,
Yeah,
aren't they?
they'll tie ropes to bridges and swing off them, and that is a great rope that they've set up. That's like something you'd pay to do at a water park, you
It
know?
is, isn't it?
Because there's like an old broken... There's like a bridge, a big state highway bridge,
Where are you talking about?
Corbett Park, and then
Which is?
down the road.
Right, okay, so just so people know, because not everyone knows where Corbett
Yeah.
Park is.
Owakura, on State Highway 45 or 43? 45? Yeah,
Yep.
45.
Yeah. There's a bridge.
There's a bridge, and under the bridge there's like the foundations of an old bridge, which is still like, I'd say maybe like twice as high as the house. Do you reckon?
Yep, go on.
And they've tied a rope to the big bridge, which you can jump off of. But if you don't want to, you can hold on to that rope, stand on the foundations of the other, jump right out into the middle of the river, and then swing up underneath the bridge and let go and go flying into the water.
Right, there's a couple of things I want to ask you about that.
Mm.
You just said that bridge is on State Highway 45. Now, in my mind, I know where it is, obviously, but
Yeah.
in my mind, if I wasn't from New Zealand, I'd be thinking, what, are they on the side of a motorway just
Yeah.
jumping off? Well, you're not on a motor. It's not.
It's a 2-lane carriageway.
It's a highway.
It's a highway, so it's a 2-lane highway.
So what do the cars do?
Beep
What?
and wave, beep and wave and shout, "Go on, jump!" That's what they shout. You drive past and they go, "Go on, jump, boy!"
Unless it's your dad, and then he beeps and says, "Get off the road." So yeah, here you are, stood on the side of the road, which is a two-way,
Yeah.
and they come up there fast, don't they? Uh-huh. And all the kids, little kids as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
there was a 6-year-old who would just jump off. It was just so funny. He was like a little Japanese boy, and he'd just jump, but he wouldn't like move his body. He'd just go completely still and fall into the water, like looking like some kind of scarecrow, and then come back up absolutely fine.
Are there any adults there supervising?
Sometimes, yeah.
There are.
There was that drunk guy that came down.
Oh
once.
no! Don't talk about that. Son.
Yeah, this drunk guy came down once with a beer can and stood on the edge, and then just almost fell in and came up with blood pouring out of his mouth.
No, Sonny. We're supposed to be getting people to come to New
Sounds
Zealand.
fun. Imagine how much fun that'd be. The Brits would be all over that. But, no.
All right, so there you are on the side of the motorway, jumping into the bridge with a drunk person.
Yeah. It's just New Zealand. You have to go there to understand it. I don't know. It's like, but yeah, it's fun.
You're right. I think that's the biggest thing is, and you, for one, you have to just be here because I'm sure that people are listening to this thinking, oh my God, no way would I let my kids do that.
Yeah, you would.
And to be honest, Sonny, if I could see what you were doing down there, I think I'd be down there dragging you back in because that would be
weird.
scary. No, but if you were a little kid, I mean, not now, but...
You're not jumping off the bridge and you're not going to the cinema. You're going out to the field.
Where's your cloak?
Where's your cloak? Where's your bow?
I wish we'd videoed this now. It would have been good, wouldn't it? Right,
We
okay.
decided not to video it, just to give it a try.
Yeah. Okay, so hang on. So, right. I think what we're trying to say, I think the overall feeling here is if you're worried about your kids being bored here, they're allowed to do, if you just let them, as in the parents let them, they are allowed to do so much more than they would do normally elsewhere in the world, I'm thinking.
Because it's just like, I don't know, they just find fun ways to have fun, you know, and it's just, most of the time, it's the only danger is like the idea of always jumping off a bridge. But like, I've never heard of anyone that's got hurt jumping off that bridge
I'm sure there are so
with
many.
cars going past or anything, you know?
Tell me about that time that you went to that person's house and they got their tractor and hooked up a bed to it, or the couch, or...
Yeah, they hooked up a carpet and whipped the kids around on the tractor.
How much fun is that?
And then the fun part was the farmer was like, right, everyone stand in a line and hold hands. And then he grabbed the electric fence so that we all got an electric shock. He's like, there you go, kids. It's what it feels like to have an electric shock. Get your gumboots on and come out to the farm.
Oh, see, that's why I love New Zealand. I really do, because they're not like, oh, careful, darling, don't do that.
Oh, mummy doesn't like that. Oh,
Yeah.
darling, you're crying.
Yeah.
I can't block out the sun for you, darling.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Oh, so that's, I'm, yeah. It's the fact that you
There's just
can
something
come
raw
here.
and real about it, I guess.
There
It's
is.
just almost like, maybe that's what it would have been like growing up in, what's that film called where they walk down the railway track looking for the body?
Stand By Me.
Is that what the load of kids?
That was it, wasn't it, Bri?
Yeah, that's what it kind of... Yeah, back in the 50s, kind of like, it's almost what it's a bit like still now.
Yeah.
You know? With kids. Like, you're just standing there, and then you look up and one of the kids has come over with a stop sign. And it's just like, where did you get that? And he was like, I found it up there. And then he stuck it on top of the bridge, and it was just a stop sign sticking in the dirt. And it was just, you know, it's just like, it's just all very raw and real, and, you know.
Would it be fair to say, I mean, you don't know this because I doubt you can remember what you were like when you were 8, but I think it's fair to say that your kids will change when they come to New Zealand, because their upbringing is going to change. It would be hard not to... I would imagine that unless you are living in a community with a load of expats and you all decide that you're not going to let your kids do this and you're not going to let your kids do that, if you immerse yourself into the New Zealand culture, your kids are going to change. They just are. I mean, you wouldn't have been the same had you grown up in Bath in England. I just know you wouldn't, because probably because I would have been more. I was too scared. I was just scared to let you do anything because of all the, you know, you're scared that you're going to get abducted or horrible things are going to happen, and would I have been brave enough to let you jump off Bath, you know, rivers and stuff? But like I say, Sonny, I've never seen you jumping off that bridge, so
Yeah.
I think sometimes what you don't know doesn't hurt you, and it's you've just got to let them, you know, join
Get
in
on
with
with
the
it.
other Kiwi
Yeah,
kids.
and just have trust that, you know.
What you've got to remember is what you did on Saturday mornings. You did lots of sport and stuff.
Yeah.
Football
He's saying we did lots of football and sport and stuff. You can't hear him.
and mountain biking and stuff.
And mountain
Yeah.
biking and stuff, yeah.
So yeah, if you describe let's just quickly describe a Saturday where you were doing, and don't do that face, please, Sonny. You better remember this with fond memories, boy.
Biking up
Listen.
the mountain behind Daddy going, I can't breathe.
No.
You're having an asthma attack. Come on.
But what about
Powering ahead.
What about then you and your dad and Tess going for that bike ride, and then we'd pick you up, and then you'd go to
Band.
Go to orchestra. Tess, Sonny,
1, 2, 3.
Sonny.
Yep.
right? You'd go to orchestra, and then what would you do? You'd maybe we'll go and get a coffee in town.
Yeah, we went to Frenchie's,
Yep.
the French
Go
cafe,
to a
and got
French
a
cafe.
flan and coffee and eggs and Benedict.
Yep.
Whatever it's called.
So
yeah.
there's 3 things that you've done on a Saturday. You've gone on a bike ride on the fantastic bike trail with your dad and your sister, and your lazy mum didn't go. And then you did your band practice and your orchestra because you're a musician and you like doing, so all that is there for kids, you know. Then went into, as it was, we went into town and had a coffee and a milkshake and whatever we did.
Yeah.
All the shows that you've been in as well.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
this
we've
isn't
done
about-
loads of
yeah,
things.
Yeah,
This
I'm
is just things that other kids can do.
this is just things that other kids can do. So, what are we doing for time, Bri?
20 29 minutes.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Right. Okay. So I wanted to talk about you being a teenager, but we're going to have to leave that because I really want to know. We're going to do one more thing on this because I really want to know like about parties and alcohol and drugs. And yeah, but I want to know about that, Sonny. And it's important. Don't do that face.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully Nick's not listening.
Yeah. And also, yeah, but people want to know what it's like for your teenager, you know. So now we've covered you being growing up as a kid in New Zealand. I now want to know in the next podcast what it's like to be a teenager. Right. We could maybe ask, you know, no, I think we'll just stick with, I was going to say, let's ask Sean or someone to, you know, or maybe, but I think you can give me are you a bit wild?
No, I'm not wild. I don't think so at all. Not in the grand scale of things.
Can you tell me some good stories?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Okay, so we'll save it for the next podcast then, when you have got to promise to tell me your stories about in the bus.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
And we'll leave it there.
All right.
So take it away then, Sonny.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you're listening. Give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you share it with your friends, it will definitely enlighten them about New Zealand. And hopefully you're feeling more confident about sending your kids to jump off bridges in New Zealand. Anyway, thanks so much for listening, guys, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us this week on the podcast. We have loved having you here.
If you guys could subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review.
Oh yeah, that would be nice.
That would be absolutely amazing. And make sure to share the podcast with your friends.
And if you'd like to hop over to the blog, find one of the little boxes that ask you to drop your email. I will send you a newsletter every week letting you know when we've released our new podcast. That will go straight into your inbox. So it's www.itsadrama.com.
All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you next week for another podcast.
Look forward to it. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.